Yo, so I am joining a battle scene between Sabretooth and Wolverine. This is by far my favorite rivalry in comics, and again, it's a biased opinion, but in my opinion, the best rivalry to exist, maybe except for the Joker and Batman. So why does that? Why is that the case? There's a couple of things. One is this was a battle that was built up over really a couple of decades. So for you guys who don't know the story, Wolverine would be tortured by Sabretooth every single year. Sabretooth would come around and attack him on his birthday. In addition to that, Sabretooth actually raped his wife, Silver Fox, killed her, and then he is somewhat connected to him. It's never really been clearly outlined, but I think what the intent was somehow they're related by blood, whether they're brothers or cousins or something. At one point, there was talk about Sabretooth being Wolverine's father. I think that's been dispelled though. In any case, they are two characters who hate each other, and they have a deeply, deeply personal hatred of one another. That's the main thing that makes this a great rivalry. In addition to that, Sabretooth is actually a faster, better, stronger version of Wolverine. And what I mean by that is he is able to act faster. He has great instincts. Wolverine has been quoted as saying his instincts are better than him. He reacts without thinking. And he's also much more aggressive. The other thing that gives Sabretooth a lot of an advantage is the fact that he gives into his nature, his psychotic, murderous, animalistic nature, whereas Wolverine is constantly trying to oppress it so he can be a man. That is the difference in values that they have, which obviously adds to their hatred of each other, because Sabretooth does not understand why Wolverine is constantly trying to oppress his nature, whereas Wolverine cannot stand the fact that Sabretooth does not try to impress it. And in fact, Sabretooth relishes in murdering people and killing people, including innocent victims. Now, that's important when I start talking about how Sabretooth is as far as fighting ability, a better version of Wolverine, because it gives him an obstacle. Wolverine has to overcome somebody who is better, stronger, and faster. That's what makes this interesting. See, one of the difficulties a lot of times in comics is you tend to use villains almost as a stepping stone to show the abilities of a protagonist off. So it becomes this whole thing where like you have a villain, and then the protagonist defeats them by using their powers, by showing it off. Great, that's neat. The problem is, at some point, you have to be able to beat people who are better than you, and it has to be apparent that they're better than you. Because that's overcoming obstacles. In fact, I think it was Wolverine, 91, 92, 93. It was a while ago, but where Wolverine finally does overcome Sabretooth. And he does it when he's at his weakest. Because Wolverine has had his claws, not his claws, but his adamantium ripped out of his body by Magneto. So he's no longer indestructible. He's also regressing at that point, so he doesn't know how he's going to end up. So he's regressing to a more basic primal version of himself, kind of like going from a human to a dog or a wolf. And then finally, he's also got a bit of a disadvantage because at that point, Sabretooth had become a member of the X-Men and was working with, maybe it wasn't the X-Men, it might have been X Factor, but he was working alongside the X team. So Sabretooth's got the inside knowledge, basically, of all of the ins and outs of what goes on in the Xavier Institute at that point. So again, you have this person now who has to overcome a stronger, bigger, faster, better version, who has a very personal hatred, and is put in a no-win situation because, spoilers, I guess it's spoilers, but this happened like 20 years ago. So, um, if you haven't read the comics, well, sorry, but you've had 20 years to do it. Sabertooth is basically going on a killing spree, and his intent is to kill everybody, kill all the X-Men. So Wolverine finds himself in a situation where it's up to him to stop him. So he has his back against the wall, and I mean that's what makes this great, because it's something they built up over years and years and years, constantly reminding you that Sabretooth's better than Wolverine. And so Wolverine has to reach deep and kind of reach down and use his intestinal fortitude to overcome Sabretooth. You don't see that anymore in comics. Now, when there's fights between the good guys and the bad guys, you're more likely to see like this preachy display of virtues, where like the character says, "Hey, you're a bad guy, and because of the way you think, because of the values you hold." That's not the case with Wolverine. Wolverine's kind of going, "Dude, I need to stop you because you're a psychotic murderer, and I hate you because you murdered my wife when you raped her." So the intensity is different, right? When you just are in a battle because of your values and because of what you feel is virtuous, nobody cares. It's not interesting. Nobody cares that, like, oh, you're gonna beat the bad guys and give a 10-minute speech on what they should feel and how they should think. Yeah, I don't care about that stuff. What I care about is Wolverine finally giving in to his animal instinct after decades of repressing it, and then just going over the line and saying, as an X-Man for years and years and years, I've been trying to uphold the values of not killing. That saying, X-Men don't kill. And then just going, you know what? This guy's worth it. This guy is, the only way I'm going to stop him is by taking my claw, popping it through his brain, and giving him a lobotomy, basically. And that's what he does. And that's what makes this great, because you have a three-dimensional character making a hard choice. I don't know if you see that anymore in the X-Men books. And just to be frank, it's been a while since I picked up an X-Men book. But I stopped because you weren't seeing that. You weren't seeing these hardcore development of characters. You were just kind of seeing like, oh, here's the new guy, and these are his powers, and here's a storyline that's not really going to be developed to a care, but we're also going to put some, leftist values in here, and you're going to enjoy them, and whatever they say is the way it's supposed to be, and that's what you're supposed to believe, and if you don't believe this, you're a bad guy, and you're going to get beaten up by somebody in the X-Men. And I don't think that's right. I think if you want to make people care about comics again, if you want to make people care about the the outcomes of these battles and these characters, you need to beat them up for a while. So Wolverine was constantly going through these hard battles. He was an alcoholic. He had this terrible past where he was, abducted. He'd worked for the government. He didn't even remember who he was. So he was constantly in a state of uncertainty and constantly overcoming challenges that he didn't even know about. Because once in a while, somebody from his past would come up and be like, "Hey, guess what? I'm here to kill you because of what you did 20 years ago." And I think that's missing. In fact, one of the worst things I think happened is that origin stories, when they showed off how Wolverine's origin was. Mainly because they had spent, decades at this point talking about his mysterious past and how he didn't know who he was. And you can do an origin story, but the one they did, it was a disappointment. It was a letdown. I don't know anybody who liked that. I don't think there's anybody who's like, oh yeah, the way they made him seem to be this kid who killed his dad and came from a rich, abusive family in the 1800s was awesome. I don't think anybody liked it, because it was such a big part of him back in the 80s and 90s, of him not knowing who he was, that when they laid it out there, it was a disappointment, right? They should have done a lot more to reveal it. in a proper way. But I mean, it was still better than what you'll see today, though. So I guess it's not all bad. But in any case, this rivalry between the two of them was always awesome because the first time the Wolverine was able to best him, like I said, in Wolverine, again, 91, 92, 93, I don't quite remember. I should have looked that up before I started filming. Then you see like this flip. You see this change of, hey, this guy can kill Sabretooth. This guy can get him. And now it's interesting because now it changes the dynamics a little bit. And then you see this other thing happen where Sabretooth now starts doing things like, doing whatever it takes to beat this guy. At one point he submits to Apocalypse, becomes one of his horsemen. And a lot of that is just so he can go back and kick Wolverine's ass. That was a driving factor. But the main thing to take away from this, and again, this is just my opinion, so that doesn't matter. There's only going to be like 3 people who watch this video anyhow. This is about the hero being a weaker underdog with a lot of challenges, doing what's right, and having to overcome a stronger, better opponent. See, the thing that makes the villain a villain is they have no obligation to do what's right. Sabretooth can sneak attack Wolverine and stab him in the back and hold somebody hostage and kill his family, kill his wife, kill his teammates. He has no issue because he has no moral obligations. The hero doesn't do that. The hero's not going to go after Sabretooth's spouse. But the other thing is he's gotta take him out when he needs to take him out. So I just wish that we could go back to that time in comics and take the time to develop not the strongest, not the best characters, but characters who will be able to overcome their weaknesses to take on bigger, faster, better opponents. And it's not a matter of, hey, I find a gimmick to overcome them. It's reaching deep down inside of themselves to find a way to beat their enemies. Anyhow, just my thoughts on the whole Wolverine Sabretooth rivalry and just what's missing in comics today. Alright, thanks for watching.